me move us to our next topic, which flows right out of this, and that is the new vice presidential choice. Trump really milked the drama of naming his choice for vice president, waiting until the first day of the convention. Most of us don't know much about JD Vance. He grew up in poverty in Ohio. He served in the Marines. He graduated from Yale Law School. He served in the U.S. Senate just under 2 years now. And I'm wondering, Anirban, what does he add to the ticket, and maybe especially for Central New Yorkers?
Yeah, I think he's a very interesting choice, right? Rupert Murdoch of Wall Street Journal and all these guys, they didn't want Vance to be picked and told Trump accordingly. But Trump is seeing, or the Republican Party is seeing, that they need to court the working class votes. So what Vance allows is to kind of pretend, allow the Republicans to kind of pretend on the face of it that they really care about the working class. And all of a sudden they have started caring about the working class while being 70 years of actually a pro-corporatist, anti-union party of bosses. And that is very interesting. That's a pivot. And JD Vance, I don't know how he shifted from calling Trump a Hitler to his, in love with Trump all of a sudden now. I don't know his head or his head fakes. But what we can see, though, is that Vance had actually joined with Josh Hawley in order to support the UAW strike. They also went and supported legislation to draw in or reduce drug costs. There are other progressive issues in which Vance have provided that vote. So I think Republican Party is going through this, I don't know, we call political realignment in US, we don't know. Strangely, and we have talked about this in before, Democrats lost the chance. Now they stand as the party of elite. They were the party of labor. They forgot to court labor. They got tied up with the color of Band-Aid on their skin. And then now they're seeing that the working class vote is being taken by Republicans. Now, are they sure about it? Are they correct about it? I don't think so. But, with the Teamsters Union coming in and talking, I see that organized labor is willing to court Republican Party, saying that, look, we will court Democrats and Republicans like all corporates do. And I hope that there's a door that opens with Vance and others that allows for certain kind of pro-labor policies to come in, but I'm yet to see that.
I think another short-term consideration is age, right? Obviously, you're trying to inject some youth into the race, but long-term, I think it's about legacy. I mean, Trump got shot in the head. He's thinking about his life in finite terms in a very immediate reality. And when you listen to him speak at the convention, he really talked about Vance as someone to carry the MAGA movement forward for years to come. And I think picking somebody with limited political background that has to be inherently grateful to Trump and his family, because another thing that stood out to me at convention is that his sons are going to run for office at some point. I think Vance cements in Trump's head his legacy moving forward. He has the youth and ability to do that, and he will work to help Trump and his family for years to come.
I think the two things to think about, I think those are great points. First, to remember it's the vice president. And as Roosevelt's vice president, John Garner, I think his name was, said that the vice presidency isn't worth a bucket of warm spit. And I think it was probably earthier than that, but that's what we have now. So that's the first thing to remember. This isn't an important job. But the second is that what it stands, the Republican movement, the legacy of Trump, what it stands for, and it's the isms. It's nativism, isolationism, and protectionism. And those three things are now the core ideology of Trump. And he is saying that there's going to be a legacy, it's going to move on, and it's going to be around those three things, which nobody has been able to articulate them quite as well as J.D. Vance. And that really is going back to that period of the 1920s, when those were the three things that we passed lots of legislation around those three things. Smoot-Hawley, we passed immigration bills. So it was a very inner look, and it was isolationist period as well. So it looks a little similar to that.
Yeah, I come at this in a very slightly different way in terms of the things that I'm looking at and that I find sort of eyebrow raising. And the first is that the very haphazard way in which he was chosen to be vice president. Some accounts say that he didn't learn until after he saw it on social media or news reports, and others say that Trump called him 15 minutes before. And so you have to wonder about the extent to which experience actually mattered for this election. I see this, as has been sort of hinted at in your comments, I see this as about identity politics. This is the Republicans' brand. of identity politics by appealing to the white working class, because we cannot point to his experience. He's only served 2 years in the Senate, and he has absolutely no experience in government leadership, and yet he will now be the second person in line should something happen to the president. He will become president based on that. Here's one of my thoughts about him. I won't so much say it's a concern just because my views on abortion are complicated, but unlike some Republicans, and perhaps even Trump himself, Vance strikes me as a true believer when it comes to some of his policy stances, that he's not just touting the party line. For example, with respect to abortion, he basically expressed something openly that I've spoken about here on the show before, and that is his concern for supporting abortion in all instances is driven partly by the fact that he's concerned about the low birth rate in America, and what he really means is the low birth rate of white women, because that's falling behind. And then we look at all of the other policy positions. He's talking one thing out of the left side of his mouth and out of the right side, these very extreme policies.
Ty, does he help in Central New York, the ticket, or does he help the local congressional races, do you think?
I don't think it helps or hurts much. I think it might be a little bit in those places that Ohio, but I don't think it's going to help. I think Trump doesn't need the help. I mean, I think at this point he's got what he's got, and doubling down on MAGA really shows he thinks he doesn't need it anymore. He's got it in the bag, and if you look at it right now and look at all the polling that's going on, right now anyway, he's not wrong.